Welcome to the Real Big Deal Sports Podcast. My name is Spencer Sheffa, and with me, of course,
Ben Wang. Thank you guys for joining us.
And the human. Social check.
Social check. On this podcast, we'll tap into every fantasy player's needs, from social gossip to team chemistry to brass tacks rushing yards. So one name I really want to touch on, I think that everyone knows this name by now. He's a household name, but you might not be thinking about him going into the 2020-2021 draft, Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon, wow, what a player. Mixon.
So we have a new team chemistry. We have Joe Burrow coming in from LSU, Heisman winner, national championship winner. What will he bring Joe Mixon-wise, who had 1,100 yards rushing? How can he help that offense? How can he help Joe Mixon move up on your rankings?
Well, I think you can just space out the offense a little bit. I think he's kind of the guy to start the offense going, in a sense. Joe Mixon never really had a line to run behind or a trusted quarterback to make his wide receivers a full use. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, injuries to wide receivers like AJ. Right,
exactly. Who is coming back this season? Can open up the field. It's hard. I don't think a lot of people realize this. When you don't have a receiving threat, it kind of crowds the box. They kind of put 8 men in the box, which is something Derrick Henry kind of faces all the time. But we do look at Joe Mixon, 278 touches last year. He's on the higher side of touches in the league. So
well, I think durability is an issue with Joe Mixon, of course. I mean, I think there are games where he could be utilized a little bit more, and hopefully we'll see that this year. But he is kind of a catching back as well, which plays into that offense, I think. And hopefully he'll have a big year.
Right. So if we're talking 8-man league, I know a lot of people play 10-man, 14-man, but if we're talking 8-man league, would you take him on your back-to-back pick, seeing if you're the 8-man, you got Snake, do you go Joe Mixon on one of those two picks?
I think maybe later in the second round I would.
Okay.
I think early second round pick, you could go another way, get a top-tier wide receiver instead.
Okay, interesting. So what do we think about their offense in total as it pertains to Joe Mixon when we have AJ back, when we have the speedster John Ross back? Does that really open up things for Joe Mixon, or will we run into the same issue where it's, 2 yards of carry, 3 yards of carry?
That's the main concern, right? We haven't seen this offense all healthy, all booming at once.
Right.
We don't really know who's the main guy.
Right.
I mean, Joe Mixon is lucky enough to have that role secured to just himself.
Right.
But we got to see where the big touches go.
Do we put him in the bell cow category?
I would say yes. I think Gio Bernard, though, is a good backup.
Right.
But that's more injury-based, I think.
Right, and a little bit of change of pace if they need a third down catch, definitely. Now, we want to bring it over to socials here. Joe Mixon, you got anything on him, Bengals in general, or even
what's
Joe Burrow?
What's his confidence like going into the season?
Fellas, I think it's a great opportunity to break down a player when it comes to socials. I don't think there's anyone where their social performance more closely mirrors their on-the-field performance than Joe Mixon.
Interesting.
Let's just pull up his Instagram here. Number that jumps off the page for me, 157K followers for an NFL running back.
No, that's low.
Let's hop over to a comp, Zeke Elliott.
Whoa, now that's a superstar.
That's a name.
That's a superstar.
I'm looking at 3 million followers.
Oh!
Zeke, boy.
I think that's what you're looking at with Joey Mix. He gets it done. He doesn't jump off the page. He doesn't make people want to hit that follow button.
Right.
He's not a walking highlight reel.
Right.
But,
he'll put his head down.
He'll get you some royalties on your Instagram, get you some clicks.
He'll give you the tough yards is what you're saying.
I mean, I'm looking at his Twitter here. He's begging for the Madden 21 promo code. It's just not the best look for the kid.
Right. I mean, you're in the NFL.
That worries me. That definitely worries me.
Exactly. You're in the NFL and you need a discount. What is that going to say?
Just to cite my sources here, August 12th, Joe Mixon tweets, "My Madden folks, what's up? Can I get the 21 code already? Eye emoji, cringe emoji."
Interesting. He's asking for a discount, so you can expect a discount on your rushing yards.
August 18th, 6 days later. Who got the Madden 21 code for me? I need it ASAP.
Sounds like the man is begging. The man is begging at this point. That's borderline begging. So we'll leave Joe Mixon. We'll actually not touch him after seeing those socials. That's very concerning. Absolute red flag. So we're just going to move right on to the next. A guy I really personally like. I think he's kind of underrated. Has some fumbling issues. But he's got a lot of yards, and he's got good yards per carry. Chris Carson. The guy is a bulldozer when he runs He's just head down. He's one of the harder people to tackle in the league. 278 rushing attempts, 1,230 rushing yards, 7 rushing TDs. Do we think he can have a repeat performance of that with the Seattle offense after they get, 2 years under their belt with Tyler Lockett being the number one and DK Metcalf being, the rising star?
Right. I mean, Seattle, notoriously high-powered offense.
Right.
Russell Wilson back there, you can play for fun.
Right.
The issue I see with Carson is he's got competition.
Right.
And he shouldn't have competition.
Say his name.
Rashad Penny.
Right.
We all hate him. We don't want to know about him.
We don't get him.
I don't want to talk about Rashad Penny
He's a complete
anymore.
enigma.
But Chris Carson, just because of that constant threat of just not getting that important touch,
right,
kind of falls a little bit for me. Fortunately, I mean, he's a bell cow in a sense,
right,
but RB2 bell cow.
Exactly. And it's so interesting. Him and Rashad Penny fill like the same role, It's like when they had CJ Prosise, he was like the kind of catching back and all that stuff. But Rashad Penny and Chris Carson are both big backs. They're kind of power running. Granted, Rashad Penny might have a little bit more in the catching game, but they still kind of fill the same role. So you can never really assume who's going to get that 1 yard punch in, which is every fantasy owner just sweats at night thinking about who's going to get vultured and who's not.
Well, I think the issue is the offense in general. I mean, you got Russell Wilson running him in. You got Rashad Penny catching him in. Chris Carson is the guy to punch it in.
Right.
But that's just 1 of 3.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Exactly.
It's not trusted. It's not consistent enough.
Exactly. And now you have DK Metcalf, who's a big body, who can get a fade in the back of the end zone now. It's like, do you even want to trust that? Like, what's the deal with that?
But I think for value purposes, where he's ranked right now in the rankings, it's actually a good, decent spot for him.
Right. Now, let's talk about his trade value. Last year, I think he had spurts. So when we talk about trading, we want, like, the big names. Christian McCaffrey, obviously. Nick Chubb had a lot of trading value. Dalvin Cook is just such a big name that you want to trade for. Will Chris Carson ever have that sort of trade value? Can you move him for another piece, like a nice wide receiver?
Oh, 100%. I mean, you know the game.
Right.
Running backs are key. Running backs are, not trustworthy in a sense of health-wise, but trustworthy in the sense of getting that touch.
Right.
There's guys out there that will have a certain amount of touches every week, week in, week out.
Right.
And that's something that people want. That's something that people trust.
Mm-hmm.
But for a top-tier receiver,
right.
I don't see it. Maybe for a package deal.
Right, definitely.
Not standalone value.
Okay, now let's kind of tap into the social network over here. Chris Carson, is there anything on the books that we should worry about? We should wear a flag?
It's cumulus clouds rolling in as I look at Chris Carson's socials. I'm seeing reports of multiple, unfortunate, sad to report this, deaths in his family.
No.
As, that's going to distract a player.
Right. I mean, that distract anyone.
That said, on the other side of it, I'm very impressed with his social performance. Now let me tell you why. I'm looking at his Instagram. It's all business. Football, we got some biceps. We got some pictures of Russ. All things are good. Twitter, we got a little sprinkling in of some politics.
Is there personality there?
Ooh, a little flavor.
Without being too outspoken.
Okay.
We're retweeting some Richard Sherman tweets. We're jumping in. D. Wade sharing some love.
So he's a good locker room presence.
This is a player that I don't see. He's got his head screwed on straight.
Right.
That's what these socials are.
And you don't want someone too loud. That will affect their fantasy performance. That will affect how the team perceives them. We just saw Earl Thomas get cut today, just off of his, locker room antics alone. So, you need someone like Chris Carson to just kind of go in, day out, go to work, put their head down and get you those tough yards.
Because let's be honest, whoever's in the backfield for Seattle, they're playing second fiddle. Russ is going to be right.
Of course.
He just needs to fill that role. And his socials are indicating he might be ready to do that.
Okay, I love that.
Let me throw something your way, though, Spencer.
Interesting. Okay.
Chris Carson ranked 16th running back.
Really? After such a stellar year last year?
After such a stellar year. He's ranked behind Leonard Fournette, but he ranked above David Johnson and Todd Gurley. What do we think about that?
Interesting. I mean, those last two names you said, does that surprise anyone at this point? David Johnson had those 2 magical years in Arizona, and then ever since that, he's just been on the downward trend. Todd Gurley, once an MVP candidate not too long ago, those knees, and toes, knees and toes. So if you want to look at that, those are easy, examples to kind of. So he's ranked in front of them, yeah?
He's ranked in front of David Johnson and Todd Gurley.
Okay, good.
But behind Fournette.
Fournette, sneaky good last year. On paper, good. Fantasy-wise, not great. You'd love, as a fantasy owner, to see more touchdowns out of him. So, can get the yards, but we need more touchdowns. So, if you want to put that into perspective,
I think we're in agreement. 3rd round pick, not bad for Chris Carson.
Not bad.
In the 4th, it's a steal.
Right, exactly. Good pickup. So overall, wait on him. Don't grab him too early, but if he's there, you'll be happy.
That's true.
Now, before we go any further, I have to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Manscaped. Boy, I did not have a single girl looking at me before. Manscaped. My Manscaped. You thought Manscaped. I promise, during the summer heat, there's nothing you want more than a trimmed palm tree. Manscaped. I feel lighter, and my girl thanks me for it. So, new segment we've been conceptualizing that we want to introduce is the touch or bust segment. In this segment, we'll kind of see, players that might have moved to different teams, that might have a crowded backfield or crowded, receiving core, and if you would like to, have them on your team next year, or if you just want nothing to do with them. So for today's touch or bust, we want to talk about the new tandem in Denver, Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay, a 2-time back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher, 2-time Pro Bowler, great start to his career. But then you add the element of Melvin Gordon, who is a good running back. He's had many good years in San Diego and then with LA as well. And now he's on the Denver Broncos. Do we touch them at all, or do we just let them go?
I think they're both defined in different roles.
Right.
Melvin Gordon, clearly a bigger body guy. Phillip Lindsay, though, efficient as hell.
Right.
Yards per carry, catch per carry. I mean, the guy's insane.
Right.
Both of them are reasonable enough flex material. Do I know which way to go? No, I don't.
Right.
It scares me a little bit. I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, I think for the answer to that, we might have to jump over to socials.
Sure.
I think that's a good segue.
I'm looking at the Denver Broncos Twitter. 30 days till the Colorado Kids back in action at Phillip Lindsay.
Whoa, there's a pecking order here.
I smell RB1.
That's my favoritism.
Wow.
People try to say that it's not a big deal, but the altitude, the style of play over there in that franchise, once you've learned how to play in that system, you can't discount the fact that they might be willing to take someone who might be a little less naturally talented, who's comfortable in the offense and knows what they're doing.
Right, and coming in year 2 for the young quarterback Drew Lock, he wants to have a security blanket that he already knows. Melvin's coming in. He's electric on the field, but he has his issues. We saw a couple things last year. We got stuck up on the goal line 3 times against Tennessee. It was a big, storyline where is he fading away or is he, still elite? So, going with what they know, I would probably ride with Phillip Lindsay, but I wouldn't want to, bank on him being an RB2. I would be uncomfortable with that.
I don't know if I'd bank on either of them being an RB2.
Right.
Personally, I think they're both flex material, although Melvin, much higher on the draft boards than Phillip Lindsay. So I think Phillip Lindsay might be a better value pick, whereas Melvin Gordon might have the higher ceiling, but still not that high.
Got it.
I think Denver's trying to make a Tom Brady situation out of Phillip Lindsay, and they're going to take it as far as it goes.
Got it. And, speaking of Tom Brady, there's a lot of pieces on that team, a lot of big names. I mean, let's just rattle them off. Mike Evans, your personal favorite.
Great socials.
Great socials. Chris Godwin. And then, of course, we have now Gronkowski. Do we want any of them? Or is it too muddy? They all had great years last year. So what's the deal with that?
The way I see it,
right.
That backfield is a mess. You don't know. You got an aged LaShawn McCoy. You got some rookies coming in. You got Ronald Jones. There's too many names.
Right.
There's too many things going on. You got Tom Brady.
Right.
You got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, way bigger names than any of these running backs.
Right.
Gronkowski now, too. This is a passing offense, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Brady, although not have the arm strength that he used to have, he's never been about that.
Right.
He's been about chunking away, keeping the drive going, keeping it consistently going.
Right.
I mean, you want these wide receivers, not these running backs.
But do you take a Mike Evans who's traditionally first and second round in that place that we know him? Or do we kind of let him fall down?
See, we already know in this podcast, we got a Mike Evans lover.
Right.
I mean, we're not going to agree.
Socials loves the guy.
I'd like to hear his perspective.
I actually have not been able to focus on Mike Evans' socials as I've been floored by Gronk's social clues that are telling me to not touch Gronkowski with a 30-foot pole this draft season.
Tap into that. Let's hear it.
Well, it might shock you to know that Gronk recently started a YouTube channel with his brother.
Ugh.
First video titled "The Gronks Are Taking Over YouTube" 5 days ago.
Wow.
That is preparing for an NFL season. He can't be starting
a new
YouTube
team,
career.
a new strategy, a new game plan, and he's making YouTube
playbook to understand.
And he's making YouTube videos. Do we hate that?
Let me pitch a possible scenario that is a hypothetical, and let's see how much truth you guys are seeing in this.
Okay.
Gronk retires from football, starts doing, WWE, all this stuff. He's got an initial bump coming off Tom Brady and the Patriots. Things start to fade. He's getting a little less attention than he used to these days. He comes back to re-galvanize the public interest in him as a figure and is now clearly using this to start re-engaging with entertainment space.
Interesting.
I don't know how much of his head's going to be between the hash this season.
Do you think like this was all...
it's a marketing campaign.
A marketing campaign, right, exactly. Do you think this was planned out carefully?
We got some minds at work here somewhere. Someone's trying to think about life after football.
Right.
And I need people a la Mike Evans to be thinking strictly about football and coming up with the pigskin and the red.
Interesting. So I think where we're going to table that is Gronkowski, don't touch him. Head's not in the right space. He won't get you the traditional 1,100
way too
touchdowns.
much risk.
There's O.J. Howard back there as well. They might even have Cameron Brate. I don't even know if that's a name that's been thrown around. So if you want anyone on that team, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, it's kind of take your pick with those two. Which one you want to pick first? So a polarizing name last year, was a top 3 pick on most people's boards. Alvin Kamara, someone you expect to always have a good season, but last year definitely underperformed. Still ranked top 5 on ESPN's list. Do you grab him in the top 5 or do you let him fall? Granted, he's on a really stacked team offensively. Latavius popped off when Kamara wasn't there, and Kamara has injury concerns with his knee and kind of played on one leg last year.
Yeah, played through an MCL tear. You can't blame the guy.
Right.
That's hard work. I do see a resurgence for Kamara. Top 5 worthy? Questionable.
Right.
Definitely questionable. I do like my running backs nowadays to be dual threat.
Right.
You love Drew Brees. You love the Saints offense. But there's guys up there that I would see way more value in than Kamara.
Mm-hmm.
You even got a single-minded guy like Derrick Henry. A
Yeah.
guy that's just running,
Exactly.
just getting touchdowns.
Downhill.
Just put his head down, go get you those chunks.
Exactly.
Kamara, you got to depend on Drew Brees throwing you the pass, looking your way, reading the option right. Kamara still has very high value, but top 5, I don't see it.
And one thing you really want in a running back, I think every fantasy owner can agree with this, is consistent touches. You don't want to ride with hot hand. Kamara is a guy who never really got 25 rushing touches a game. And, it seemed last year hot hand was at play with Latavius, kind of ripping off large chunks. Alvin Kamara missed a few games, and Latavius kind of, popped off. But, if we look at the stats from last year, we're looking at 4.66 yards a clip. Wasn't too bad. He still broke 1,000 total yards, but it wasn't as exciting, and especially in the touchdown department, as we're used to. So one more name I want to throw out there is Emmanuel Sanders. Is he going to take away from Kamara's production, adding an elite veteran receiver to that offense?
Take away, not sure about that.
Okay.
We got Drew Brees out here throwing, can make every wide receiver look good.
Right.
So I'm not sure adding in these guys that, are semi-decent to very good are really going to change the numbers for Kamara. I think he's still going to get looked at for the short passes, make plays out of it. My one concern with any first-round pick, though, is health.
Right.
Right? You got Kamara, you got Dalvin Cook.
Right.
Big question marks around their stability,
Definitely.
longevity. And I don't like taking risk with my first pick.
Okay.
I like guys that, do their job, nothing crazy, but will consistently get me those points.
Right. So would you reach for someone who you can depend on, maybe a Josh Jacobs from last year or even a Nick Chubb over Alvin Kamara?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Right.
Personally, I would. I like touches. I like, healthy guys. Although Nick Chubb definitely saw some decline with Kareem Hunt being added, and the Browns offense as a whole looks abysmal.
Right.
Still, you got this guy, fast, longest touchdown recorded last year.
Interesting.
Kamara, good value, I guess, but 5th overall, not healthy enough for me.
Can you see him sliding down to the second round?
No.
Okay.
No. No, his name brings too much value.
Exactly.
That's the thing. I think when you're looking at Kamara, you're looking at sort of the inverse Joe Mixon in that he's got high swag factor, high pop-off play, highlight reel factor. Right. I mean, if we jump over to his social ratios, 44 following, 912K followers.
That is an incredible ratio.
You love to see that. If I could just read off a couple tweets, I don't think this is going to help anyone with, we're looking for that consistency. These are all within the last week. So just to give you an idea of what's brewing currently in this man's mental space. My mom told me females cannot be trusted. I love her, period.
That is
Mama's boy alert.
Mama's boy alert, but also very questionable statement.
Next. And just making sure we are in training camp for an NFL season, right?
Correct.
Best nail salon in NOLA? Question mark, exclamation point.
Interesting. There's a lot to unpack there.
There is. I don't know if I'm ready to unpack it though.
No, that's a question for a later date.
For the final tweet for this mental check-in. Well, at Bank of America, it was cool banking with y'all, but y'all blew it. Adios.
The man cannot handle his money.
I don't trust him.
There's money issues revolving around this man. Fantasy owners, you may not know this, but money plays a factor into how a person performs.
Money's on the mind.
If money is on the line between the hashes, they're going to act differently.
It's true. It's very true. But, the Saints as a whole, socially, they're all over the place.
They're all over the place.
We got disagreements between teammates. We got big movements being shut down by quarterbacks.
Wow.
Who knows what's going on?
Drew. Will that social movement impact how him and Drew gel? We'll have to see. They might have had time to repair that friendship, but who knows? There might be some inner kindling that they must redo. So let's move into another direction of a name that should by this point be a household name. People still find a way to not talk about him. He was a Pro Bowler, but somehow didn't make the top 100 NFL list by his other peers. Kenny Golladay, someone who led the league receivers-wise in touchdowns last year, had 1,190 yards on 65 receptions. That's 18.31 yards per reception, okay? If we're looking at to compare, DeAndre Hopkins had 11.2 yards per reception. Devontae Adams had 12. Julio had 14. Okay, this man had 4 more points per reception, 4 more yards per reception than the great Julio Jones. So let's talk about Kenny Golladay and where he stacks up and where you want to pick him.
Do I hear the name Megatron anymore? Kind of. I'm hearing a whisper. This guy's a touchdown machine. The only issue with Kenny Golladay is, he finished 3rd overall in wide receiver rankings last year. Averaged 7.3 targets a game. That ranked 28th.
Interesting.
We're thinking too small-minded about Kenny Golladay.
Right.
You got guys like DJ Moore, Christian Kirk, Sterling Shepard getting a whole target more per game.
Right.
It's absurd. This guy's a machine. He scores touchdowns for fun.
Right.
I mean, it's a trustworthy name in my opinion now.
So when we look at him where ESPN has him ranked, he's below Mike Evans, below Chris Godwin, below Julio, all those names. And then he's above Amari, Cortland, Odell. Do you think he's kind of placed right where he needs to be at 24? Or would you take him over the brand names like a Chris Godwin, like a Mike Evans, even, who knows, a Devontae Adams?
I mean, his ceiling is, the highest in the league, possibly. Right. The guy finished 3rd overall last year with little targets. If they see a bump in either of those things, he's number 1.
Right.
You got him at number 8th overall in wide receivers. Number 9th, DJ Moore.
Oof.
Number 10, Allen Robinson. Great years from the guys, not the same caliber of player.
Exactly. You can trust that there's a good chance Kenny Golladay will get you those 14, 15 points. DJ Moore, Allen Robinson, they have bust potential with a 5-pointer every now and then. So let's talk about, Stafford was missing most of the year last year,
Right.
And when Stafford was there, the offense was running, everything was going smoothly. And then kind of when he left, Kenny Golladay was still, a potential good option. So if Stafford stays healthy the whole year, will he get more targets?
Tell me something new, though, Spence. Cameron Johnson went through this his whole career.
Right.
No other guys on his team to really help him out, but still put up good numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You got Kenny Golladay in this exact same situation. Kerryon Johnson's nothing special.
Right. Okay.
You got him at number 8. It's just abysmal. It's abysmal. He's a wide receiver 1 in my eyes. You can't tell me otherwise.
Okay.
DJ Moore, hell no. flex for me.
Thank you. Finally, someone's got their head on straight. Now, if we know anything about anything, we need to go to socials.
Well, guys, I hate to rain on this parade, but I am officially...
Back to Stafford. Stafford's going to pull deep down the field. He's there. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Loving this man's social. It's quiet. It's to the point. Good ratio. I'm not seeing any red flags. I'm looking at this as a must-have player.
Wow.
Ooh.
So, write that down, owners. Pick him. Don't wait, because, you will regret it. He will get snagged, and then you will be on the receiving end, no pun intended, of his 25-point game.
You might end up you're going to be tweeting at Bank of America yourself with how your bank account's going to be doing if you do not have this man in your lineup.
After you lose that buy-in, placing last place. Okay, so one name that, kind of polarizing. Fantasy owners don't really know if we can fully buy into him year after year. Was on the Minnesota Vikings last couple years, Minneapolis Miracle. You might know this man, Stephon Diggs. So last year and the past couple years, he's had Pro Bowl receivers on the other side to take coverage away from him, like Adam Thielen. He had stud running backs like Dalvin Cook, and the man had a career year last year. Broke 1,000. Was recently traded to the Bills to kind of fit that new offense that they're trying to build with John Brown. Is it someone we want to touch on next year as he is the number one in that scheme?
I see no game with Stephon Diggs.
Whoa!
I know, it's controversial, but hear me out. Now he's a number one target on the team.
Right.
It's a run-first kind of offense.
Got it.
Don't really trust the guy to run routes perfectly, just kind of a deep threat kind of guy. And on a scramble play, sure, that can work out for him.
Right.
He's the same as he's always been, though. There's weeks where he will win you the game, and there's weeks, but the majority of weeks he will do little to nothing for you.
I agree with you.
Maybe 5 points a week, but then some weeks getting you 30.
Right.
He's a guy that you might want to take a shot on later, but where he's drafted around, which is number 28th receiver overall, I see guys like A.J. Green, Michael Gallup, Tyler Boyd, Will Fuller. Same kind of ceiling, These guys, a little more trustworthy in my eyes as well, on better offenses. Stephon Diggs, don't touch him.
Don't touch him. But let's talk about those names you mentioned around him.
Okay.
Specifically, Michael Gallup. Very interesting character. I know you had him last year.
I did.
He had a couple of good games, couple 100-yard-plus games. But what role does he fit fantasy-wise? Is he a flex? Is he a flex 2? Can you trust him to week in and week out at least get you 70? 70 yards, sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. No chance. Michael Gallup, you bring in CeeDee Lamb.
Right.
I think Dak is going to have a great year, personally. Okay. I think he had a great year last year as well.
Right.
Michael Gallup saw so many targets, in my opinion, with so little receptions.
Right.
The guy doesn't really have hands.
Okay.
He's a good route runner in my eyes. He's a big body kind of guy. He's a guy that, in terms of regular football, great to have on your team.
Okay.
Fantasy football-wise, I see a recession in his stats. I see CeeDee Lamb coming in and taking his role, possibly. Too much there to unpack.
That's totally fair. Now, let's talk about, I know, socially, Diggs is all over the map.
He is.
Now, do you have anything that you can kind of unpack for us there on the social channels?
I think, it's rare that you see this when you come to socials, that you're dealing with abstract and the unknown and the metaphoric. But if I'm going to pull up Stephon Diggs' Instagram here for you guys, those are the first 6 pictures that we're seeing. I'm seeing a man on an island.
I'm seeing not a team player.
I'm almost seeing Tyler, the creator.
I'm seeing a guy who's going to be this isolated in the secondary.
Whoa.
He's going to be locked up. People are going to be putting their first corner on him. And with all the other weapons that the Bills have at their disposal, I'm not sure if he's going to be getting those kind of numbers, seeing as he's not used to being the number one receiver in an offense in the same way.
So now I know you guys, listeners, can't actually see what's on the screen, but I just want to break it down for you. It is only pictures of him on his Instagram. There's no teammates. There's no thank you, Minnesota, thank you, Bills.
There's no dogs in the background. There's no people
Family,
walking about.
Friends, anything. And dare I scroll down here for dramatic effect to another 3 pictures.
Oh, it's entirely a flex. It's entirely a flex.
You cannot tell me that there's not some mental going on there.
Look, the man only cares about himself. And every fantasy owner should know team players are what you want. Because any locker room presence, look, we've seen AB, as great as he is, get cut. And you know how many people got hurt, fantasy owners, by that? You know, me being one of them. I'll never forgive him. So if Diggs is anything like that, you know, you're going to have issues. So be careful with him. Great. So for our last segment, we want to give you listeners kind of what we think are sleeper quarterbacks and sleeper tight ends to kind of look out for. Two positions, you know, hard to go wrong, but also hard to get 100% right. It's hard to pick a good quarterback kind of in the later rounds after the top 5 or 6 have been taken. You know, if you get Jameis, it can kind of ruin your season. Same with tight ends, you know, it kind of falls off after the 4th or 5th. So we want to give you guys what we think would be good ones to look for next season. So for me personally, I think sleeper quarterback would be Kyler Murray. So I think this should become as no surprise to a lot of you. One of the biggest weapons in the entire league has now joined his team, DeAndre Hopkins, a guy you can count on 100% of the time, gets you potentially 1,500, 1,600 yards, 11 touchdowns. The kid's got wheels as well. Kyler Murray knows how to run the ball. So you're going to get a lot of rushing touchdowns, which you all know are more valuable for quarterbacks than actual passing touchdowns. And, of course, Kenyon Drake, who, you know, can help him, you know, relieve the secondary because he's a true running threat, but also catch the ball out the backfield. You know, he's going to get a lot of chances for screen plays, which will also end up in touchdowns as well, more points for him.
That's a great point you just made, Spence. Not gonna take away from that.
Okay.
But I'm also gonna say that you're wrong.
Oh,
Dak Prescott is the man to have this year. Finished 2nd overall last year. Let me read you some stats, Spence.
Okay.
Prescott ranked no lower than 6th among any quarterback in all of these categories. We're talking pass attempts,
Okay.
completions, passing yardage, passing touchdowns, yards per pass attempt, and average depth of throw.
Wow.
All while dealing with the league's highest number of drops from his wide receivers.
You're kidding.
This guy also, you know, can run the ball. Got 3 rushing touchdowns last year,
Right.
around, you know, 300 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but you add in another year with Amari Cooper.
Right.
Add in another year with Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb. All these guys with a high-powered offense, one of the best O-lines in the league. I see nothing but mad potential for the guy.
I love that.
Dak Prescott ranked 5th overall in quarterbacks this year. It's a steal. If you get him 5th, it's a steal. You should get him 2nd.
Interesting.
Well, boys, I hate to be all business today, but I just got a straight-up diamond in the rough for you today.
Talk to me.
And it is the bridge too far, Mr. Teddy Bridge.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm seeing an explosive year in mind for this young man.
A terrifying take.
Let me tell you, a lot of people, you know, eyes are on what's recently coming into the Patriots franchise, out of the Panthers franchise. Not too many people looking at what's coming into the Panthers franchise these days.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we all know they've got one of the better running backs in the entire league. Teddy Bridgewater had, you know, a horrific knee injury that set him back a long ways. Had been showing some potential and was yet to find his home. He's now had a couple weeks to learn more than that, to learn under Drew Brees how things are done at the highest level. People are going to be looking for him. Bar's set pretty low right now. I think he's got good things to prove.
So he's got big boom potential, as you know,
exactly.
Players would say.
Exactly. This is not someone I'm taking with a priority pick, but down the line, I think he's a risk that could potentially pick.
So circle him on your draft boards if he's still there, maybe in the really late rounds. Good to take a flyer on him. And so for this last segment, I think one of the hardest positions in fantasy to pick is the tight end. You know, do you take him early over wide receivers that are there, over running backs, or do you wait and kind of take flyers each week, kind of get, you know, Cameron Brate situation, see if we can get you a touchdown and 30 yards, not much, or do you kind of fully invest in like a Travis Kelce or a George Kittle? So for me, you know, this might not be the biggest the biggest sleeper. He had a great year last year, but I think he's going to really break out this year and kind of stamp himself as one of the bigger tight ends in the league. Darren Waller. You know, the guy is 6'6", around 250 or 240. You know, can run a 4.4. Matchup nightmare for anyone. I don't see any linebackers being able to cover him. I don't see any safeties being able to tackle him. You know, John Gruden is probably going to use him as a security belt the entire year. trying to get the offense moving. So I think Darren Waller, I'm gonna give him 1,200 yards. Give or take 8 or 9 touchdowns. I'm liking that stat.
Great points, Spence. Great
Thanks.
points. My guy though, Tyler Higbee.
Whoa.
The man went on a roll late in the year last year. He went on to produce, in the last 5 weeks, the best outcome out of any tight end in the league.
Unreal. Read it.
Let me read you some targets.
Yep.
Week 13, 8 targets. Week 14, 11. 15, 14, 11, 12. This guy had targets for fun.
Wow.
Tom McVay would be a fool to not utilize this man. Let me read you some yardages after this, too.
We love it.
From week 13 on, 107, 116, 111, 104,
What?
84. The man went on a roll. He is one of the best value tight ends in the game.
Okay.
I think the Rams, they're losing Todd Gurley.
Right.
They lost Brandon Cooks. They added Josh Reynolds. These guys, they need some sort of stability around them.
Right.
You find that in your tight end, and you know that.
Of course.
Tyler Higbee is the guy they want.
So do you think QB1 is looking at Higbee's way more often than not after losing kind of his staple pieces in Todd Gurley, in Brandon Cooks? You're relying on Kupp and Woods now. Do you think Higbee's going to be more of a security blanket moving forward?
Well, the way I see it is his targets at the end of the year were insane.
Right.
For a reason.
Right.
He will continue this target share. He will continue producing for you. They can't add on, 10 touches to Josh Reynolds.
Right.
You just have to keep stable with this man.
So where do you pick him?
He is in my top 5.
Okay. And rounds-wise, do you take him over a Tyler Lockett?
I think value-wise, you can grab him later than a Waller,
Okay.
for instance, or an Evan Ingram,
Right.
and still get the same value.
Okay.
Possibly 3-4 rounds even later.
Interesting. He will be sitting there. Not a household name yet, so mark that on your draft boards. He will be sitting, and just wait on him as long as possible before you see his name start to bubble up.
Yeah, I think something else that we got to also focus on a more zoomed out level when you look at the game of football and the way that it's evolving. Popular or successful teams who are making it to the end of the season all are starting to have one thing in common, which is a big play receiving tight end. You look at the Chiefs; they've got Kelsey, he just secured the bag. Same things can be said for George Kittle with the Niners. These are teams that are the future of the NFL. I think you got to start thinking about taking tight ends as a more serious option and not letting them fall too late. There's somewhere where you can quickly differentiate your team and have a 10 to 15 point skill or point margin on your competitors rather than taking a reach on a wide receiver who could possibly not pan out, like we've said. So I think the same way NFL head coaches are starting to invest in tight ends, we've got to as well as fantasy owners.
Right.
It's great draft strategy.
Right, exactly. You want to have that point swing. If you have wide receivers you can depend on, the tight end might be the position that makes or breaks your week. So you want someone you can kind of go in confidently saying, this man will at least get me, 7 targets, 80 yards, and you can live with that. So thank you guys for tuning in to our first official podcast episode of The Real Big Deal. We will be doing this every Sunday and would love for you guys to join us next week.
Peace, love, and socials.
Social check.